Hi, this is Jim York with FoxEdge, helping you master the art of balancing agility and focus. Welcome to our video series on Agile. Agile helps us respond to change in a timely and appropriate manner. However, not every situation requires this ability. So how do we know if the situation that we are in would benefit from Agile? Well, one tool I have found helpful is the Cynefin framework by Dave Snowden, created in 1999 while he was at IBM. Cynefin is a Welsh word meaning habitat or the environment in which we find ourselves. The Cynefin framework has 4 quadrants, each of which describes a different kind of environment. The first quadrant describes an environment in which solutions are obvious. It's routine, it's rote. We simply sense what's going on and we act. For example, when we wake up in the morning, we get out of bed. It's obvious. There's an obvious solution to starting our day. We don't have to have a plan or a checklist. We just act and move on. And it works. The second quadrant describes an environment in which things are routine and rote. However, now there's a bunch of stuff. So it's complicated. In a complicated environment, we generally benefit from having some sort of plan or tracking mechanism to ensure that things don't slip through the cracks, and we simply execute the plan, and again, we're successful. The third quadrant, now we're dealing with unknowns. It's complex, and when things are complex, we have to figure it out. So we run experiments, we try stuff, we learn from what works and what doesn't work, and then perhaps we might run some more experiments to develop some more knowledge or information. And ultimately, the hope is we arrive at what will work. And when we arrive at that spot, sometimes what works is an obvious or a complicated solution. So we can shift out of complex into known because we figured out those unknowns. So we couldn't have gotten there if we hadn't gone through the experimentation. So the key is when you're a complex environment, don't try a known solution. You have to run the experiments. The fourth quadrant is also dealing with unknowns. However, there's an additional component. It's now urgent. So we're in chaos. We have to act now. We can't wait. We can't craft a plan. We have to do something and then step back and assess. So, for example, if we arrive at the emergency room bleeding profusely, we don't want the hospital staff to step back and form a plan on how they're going to deal with us. We want them to stop the bleeding. It's urgent. It's critical. We're in chaos. Now, once the bleeding's been stopped, then we can assess and figure out what next. It might be that things are still chaotic. It may be that something else urgent is going on, and that has to be addressed as well. Or it may be that now the situation is stable. We can step back and consider. Maybe the solution now is obvious. We know what's causing the bleeding, and we deal with that root cause. Or perhaps it's complicated, and there's a series of procedures that need to be done. So perhaps now we're in that complicated environment. Or perhaps we're still confused. It's not urgent, but they're unknowns. So we are in the complex environment and we're going to have to craft some experiments, run them to develop some more information. The key is to understand which environment you're in to apply the appropriate solutions. Now, sometimes we don't understand the environment that we're in, and in the model, this is called disorder. It's key when you're in disorder to make sure you don't get stuck in the same solution set. So if you're trying obvious solutions when you're in disorder and they're not working, chances are your environment is not one in which an obvious solution applies. So you need to shift to a different quadrant. So we're trying to figure out where we are. So keep trying different things until you land in the environment with the right solutions to solve your particular situation. So this is a brief overview of the Cynefin framework. Hopefully it was useful. If you'd like to know more information about it, this introduction by Dave Snowden is great. So thank you and be balanced.